Okay, put the key in and let's see what happens here. Oh, goddamn, a whole lot of nothing. Yeah, where are all my lights? Let's see if it starts. Well, that works. What the There's no brake lights either. Welcome back to the sweatshop, boys and girls. Today we are looking at a 2012 Fiat 500. It is a Gucci edition, which is kind of cool. Unfortunately, this Gucci box is not currently working. So we're going to show you exactly what the issue was and the symptoms that it gave the customer. So there are three things that happened, but two things that the customer actually saw. The first thing is that when you turn the ignition to the run position, nothing happens with the cluster. The second thing is when you start the vehicle and try to move it, you can't actually move it because the gear lever won't go anywhere. The shift lock is inoperable. And when you press the brake pedal, no lights come on. So obviously we have lost power to these three components. They're not being actuated and they're currently not working. There's no check engine light, there's no DTC codes for this particular issue. So the first thing to do is to check for power at all of the fuses and to make sure they're all okay. So there are two fuse box locations on this particular vehicle that I know about. The first one being under the hood and the second one being underneath the kick panel over here. So I'll show you the one under the hood first. You'll need to pull this guy here. Now, after you have pulled the hood release, the next step is to open the hood up. You're going to do so by sticking your finger in here like this, lifting the hood, and then pulling that yellow tab there, like that. And you can access your engine bay. Don't forget to put your hood prop up because no one likes to get hit in the head with a hood. Here is the fuse box that is under the hood. This bolt here is all that holds the cover on and which will allow you to access the actual fuses so you can test them. It is a 7mm bolt, but we're not going to be touching that because I've already found the problem and it's not in here. Now your other fuse box, where the actual problem lies for this particular vehicle, is right here in the driver's side footwell. Those are your fuses right there. Now to test the fuses, what we're going to have to do is use a test light. When using a test light, you will have to connect the clamp side to a ground or to a positive connection to test the circuit. What we need to test this particular circuit is a ground so that we can see when the power shows up. Now to test to make sure that the test light is okay, you have to touch this end to a power circuit. We are going to use the OBD2 port connector to check to see whether we have power. When you see that light up, you know you're good. And now what you have to do is test those fuses. The particular one that failed is this guy here. You can see that nothing shows up on the test light. It is currently dead. That's because we are testing it currently in the off position. If you test it like this, you will not see that the fuse is blown. So in order to test it properly, turn the ignition to the run position so that you know that there'll be power flowing through this particular circuit, because all of those items that have failed only operate when the vehicle is in the run position. Put the key into the ignition, turn it to the on position, and now you can properly test those fuses. You can see it lights up there, it lights up there. That indicates that this fuse is letting current flow from one side of the fuse to the other. Now with the bad fuse, nothing happens here, but there's current there. That's how you know this fuse here is bad. So the solution, replace it. What works best is a small little plier like this. Pull that guy out and then gently push the new one in. Shouldn't take that much force. And there you can hear some of the components coming back to life. Well, look at that, boys and girls. We have lights. Now just verify that everything works, and as you can see, there are lights on the dashboard, and also we can shift gears. And when the brake pedal is pressed, the brake lights come on now. Yay! And as you can see, the brake lights now light up, but The third brake light up here is being lazy, and I can tell you that the salt on the window is not blocking the light out, it's just dead. So that may be the reason that the fuse blew in the first place. So let's take a look. Now there is a clip on this side and a clip on that side that is underneath the panel, and then there are two clips that hide these screws here. These are two number 2 Phillips. Just pull those out and you'll be able to remove the light. So here's one of the reasons why I absolutely love my power probe. This thing here is a lifesaver. I don't have to set up 2 separate wires, one running from the positive side of the battery and one running from the negative side of the battery to test certain components. It's all in one handheld device. Currently now the brake pedal is depressed and obviously there's no brake light here. So what I can do is test for voltage and ground. You not only get a visual cue and an audible sound, so in case you're deaf or blind, you're covered by the power probe. That green light indicates that there is ground to the circuit. You can test the other wire and there's ground. The black one here is the actual ground, and this one here should be the one that gets power. With my power probe, we'll shut the sound off. With my power probe, I can now put power to this component to see whether it actually works. As you can see, it does, but only halfway because it's a Fiat, so we can't really do much about the 3 LEDs that are out, but we know that the component works. So what that indicates to us is that there is obviously a break in the wire somewhere. Now from experience, I know where to look. This is the harness that goes into the hatch of the Fiat. It's on the driver's side on this particular model, and you can see here that there is a whole bunch of cracked, exposed, and frayed wires. So that is definitely what caused our issue with the 5 amp fuse blowing. This is something that is common on a lot of newer cars. These types of things happen. It's not just enough to check and see whether it's a fuse or not. You've also got to inspect all the components that you can see that are affected by that particular circuit and see what component might not be working properly. Otherwise, you'll just be replacing fuses consistently. What we're going to do to repair this is cut these wires out that are damaged and solder them back together. The ones that aren't completely severed or not completely frayed or have any kind of corrosion, what we'll do is we will tape them up. Unfortunately, it is not an easy job. It's not the hardest thing, but it can be a pain in the ass. And you can see there that green wire is the one that runs to our brake light, and that is why we're not having any of the LEDs on that particular light up. So let's get to her. Now to this point, what I have done is tried my best to push this portion of the harness back so I could expose more of the wire, and the same on the opposing side. This is the brake wire that was busted. So what you'll need for this is some heat shrink, a soldering iron, some solder, and a method of cleaning the wire that is decayed. My preferred method is a wire cup on a drill. Works the best for me. And then a lighter just to get that heat shrink around this here. Now with the heat shrink, when you're doing it, because there is such little wire here, chances are your heat shrink will shrink when you actually apply the heat from the soldering iron. So what I like to do is I like to solder just the tips of either side of the wire. Once they cool off, slide your piece of heat shrink over, and then you can go ahead, solder them together. Meanwhile, you just hold your fingers here on the wire a little bit upstream so that the heat doesn't travel and that your fingers absorb some of the heat. But there shouldn't be that much heat because both of the wires have now been doused in solder. The ones that aren't completely busted here or completely frayed, we're not going to be cutting them and splicing them. Like this big black one here is just, it's got a few wires. But one of the crappiest thing about this repair here is that when you're doing it, if you douse it with solder, it's going to make the joint really hard. And because it's a joint that consistently flexes every time the hatch is opened, it'll break again. The other thing you can see here is Chrysler or Fiat, whichever genius company designed this, put the water pipe in the same section. That's what's caused the corrosion, because whenever the customer tries to use the rear windshield washer fluid, it's spurting all over the wires and helping them decay. So yeah, just cut away whatever decayed wire is there, solder the joint, put some heat shrink over it. Once you do that, go ahead and tape it with a healthy dose of duct tape or electrical tape. We'll call this one done. It should look something like this here when you are finished. That one right there. Underneath that duct tape is the heat shrink like this. So yeah, now all you gotta do is another like 13 wires or something. So, and be aware that when you do go to light the heat shrink up, that you don't catch anything else on fire. Now get all that soot off and you can tape it up. Pull it as tight as possible. Now, once you have repeated this process for the rest of these wires, what you're going to do, run a piece of tape around it just to keep it as stiff as possible in that area. You don't want it to be overly stiff so that it can't move. You just want it to be stiff enough so that these particular wires aren't flexing consistently and it uses the rest of the wire, which is still decent. As for the genius invention here, what we're going to do is try to stick a small piece of pipe in there to fix that. If not, we'll end up leaving it as it is or telling the customer that they'll have to replace this complete pipe. Now, it has been quite a while and we have got all the wiring back together. Now, all the tape joints and sections that we had done are now in this section here of the hatch. And we had yanked on the harness just a bit to get some more wire out of the body of the car. This job is a real pain in the ass. When you go to put everything back together, what will help you with getting the body grommet and the grommet for the hatch back in place is a little bit of WD-40. Now, all you got to do is put everything back together and you're good to go. As for the windshield washer fluid pipe, we were able to get a plastic piece from some scrap that I had. Basically, it has a neck on either side underneath the hose. It's a one-way valve, something that Chrysler never came with. Of course, my Subarus and the scrap cars that I have do come with them because they're fairly decently built. So we were able to utilize that part and fix this Fiat. Wonderful car. Now, all you got to do is verify that everything works and you're good to go. So well, that is that, ladies and gentlemen. That's all she wrote for the Gucci box. Hopefully you guys liked the video. If you did and it helped you out, please like, share, and subscribe. And don't forget to hit the notification bell so you never miss one of my new videos. We will see you in the next one. Now, to test the fuses, you'll need to grab... Fuck. What you're gonna have to do is get your big head in here. I love my Gucci box Fiat. Let's go take it for a ride. Now, after you have popped the hood release, the next thing is to stick your hand... Fuck. Now, after you have popped the hood release, the next thing to do is to stick your finger in there. Oh, for fuck's sakes. I don't understand why they came up with this, but hey, Chrysler. Now, fucking compressor. Sticky door handle, just part of the culture. Look at those awesome seats. They're Gucci-tacular. So, find the key. Fuck. Where put the key? Fuck is the key, man, for real. Pause that shit. For those of you wondering, the key was in the door. Now, back to our regularly scheduled programming. The fuck is the key, Gucci?